Hey there, welcome to Authentically Raw. I'm your host, Jamie Darris. Today I'm welcoming Bunny Young to the podcast. She's a very inspiring and empowering woman, and we're going to have a great conversation. Could you go ahead, Bunny, and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you for having me here. I think the most interesting introduction I can give is being a retired stunt woman who has survived multiple heart surgeries and 10 miscarriages in order to have 5 successful companies. So those are a lot of numbers that I'm sure we'll get into, but that is, yeah, serial entrepreneur, army wife, retired stunt woman. That's a good introduction.
Wow. There's a lot there, a lot of encouragement and empowerment to be had just out of that short bio, but very impactful bio. So I guess if I were to ask a little bit about your story, stunt woman,
Yeah.
10 miscarriages, heart surgery, like I'm going to let you take it away. Tell us your story. I don't know which one you want to start on. I'll let you decide.
I think that the theme with all of them is kind of not allowing life to be prescribed, but really to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that everything's happening for you and for you to accomplish your purpose. Nothing's actually happening to you. And some people may listen to that and be like, how could you possibly feel that way? And I think that when I was diagnosed with my heart condition, really for the first time ever, I felt like I had a permission slip to do what I wanted to do rather than follow this track along of go to college and get a degree and get a career. And my realization now is that I was the only one who was prescribing that for me. I mean, my parents, I'm a third generation entrepreneur. So my parents are entrepreneurs, my grandparents are entrepreneurs. And growing up, it was like, I really wanted to feel safe. I really wanted to feel supported and feel fulfilled. And I thought that that was going to work every single day and having somebody hand me a paycheck. And when I was diagnosed with my heart condition, it allowed me to explore how to make money trading something other than my time. I was really set on being able to leave a legacy. And it also just opened my mind to being able to say yes to more things. And so when the opportunity came around to be a stunt woman in China for a year, it was like, yeah, why not? And then I kind of feel like if you guys have kids, you've seen that robots movie where they say that the robots like see a need, fill a need. And that's really how my entrepreneur journey started is I saw a need and started a company. And I've sold multiple companies and come back to the 5 core things that I have right now are around providing not just the information, but also the resources and a safe space to build and grow into that fulfillment and into that purpose. So I think that every diagnosis and every loss and every success that I've had ends up being able to kind of carve this path. Yeah, when you look on the scoreboard, it can be a little overwhelming. And I think we all have those stories when we sit down and really give ourselves credit for it.
Wow. So, oh gosh, I have so many questions already. At what age were you when you went to China to be a stunt woman? And what kind of stunts did you do?
I did a lot of different stunts. I had just gotten married. I was 21 and I had the benefit of the first year of marriage that 4 to 5 times a day I got to light my husband on fire, throw him off a building, fight with him, shoot guns at him, and kiss another man and get paid for it, all in a live action stunt show. So our stunt show was like a Bonnie and Clyde type theme. And he was the police officer, like the detective, kind of the Brad Pitt character that was chasing us. So it was kind of like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but instead of him being Mr. Smith, he was the like CIA director that was trying to chase us down. So, and I did a 40-foot face first Australian rappel in a evening gown and heels. That was like my big stunt of that show. And then my husband did slide for life and fire burns and high falls and fighting, which we both did. And I blew up a helicopter with a bazooka in the stunt show.
That is awesome. So
Yeah.
this was in China you did all of this.
Yeah, it was in a city north of Dalian, which
Okay.
is on the northeast coast of China. So it was a stone's throw away from North Korea, which I know because I actually did throw a stone at North Korea, which is probably not something I should say on a podcast, but I did do it because my grandfather was in the Korean War. So I just felt like this was my, doing it for my grandfather.
Oh my goodness. So how long did you do this for then?
a year, a year. And then
One
I
year.
came
Okay,
home,
yes.
and then my husband still went back to Germany. He went to Germany and did stunts for another year before he joined the military. And he's still a stuntman. He's still the most talented stunt professional and high faller that I've ever witnessed or seen. That's not because I'm his wife. That's an unbiased opinion. But I have since retired from my stunt professional
Yeah.
role.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's just so badass. It truly is. That's
I
really
love it.
cool.
I love it.
So when did you find out, did you have like a pre-existing heart condition? How did that come about?
I was 14, and what I had experienced was like difficulty catching my breath, feeling dizzy, passing out. And what ended up we discovered is that my heart was actually going really quick. And so I got diagnosed with what they thought was SVT, and they thought it was a particular kind of SVT at that point. And so I was supposed to grow out of it. Most people do, most teenagers do. I was just lucky enough not to. And then in 2017, I was diagnosed with another heart condition, which is the opposite of it. My heart rate goes too slow. So I got my first service dog for a heart condition when I was 17.
Okay. So what does the service dog actually do then?
He alerts to dangerous variations of my heart rate, i.e., being too high or too low. And then he's a walking cane that helps me walk and get up. And if I get dizzy, he assists me.
Wow, that's incredible. So how has your heart condition impacted your life since you found out? And
You
you've
know,
had multiple heart surgeries, correct?
I have.
Okay.
That's a really interesting question because I don't know that I can answer it because it's my life.
Mhm.
I haven't lived the past however many years of my life, over 2 decades now, without a heart condition.
Mhm.
And so I know there are things and decisions that I have done differently because of my disability. And I can't really imagine not having the disability at this point in my life. And I think that the lessons have come from how do you want to spend your time? Don't take tomorrow for granted. Do you have to do it all? Like, I starting your own company, a lot of entrepreneur mindset is around working, 80 to 120 hours a week and the hustle and the grind. And I just didn't experience that because I knew I had to do things differently. Ironically, when I took a contract with a client that I was more of in like an employment situation because I let them bring me on, I ended up working, 120 hours a week because I was trying to make them happy. But when I backed out of it and I just created contracts and client relationships that were in favor of my life, I never really had that experience because I'm not really good to anybody working 120 hours a week. And to be honest, even working an 8 to 10 hour day anymore, I've found better ways for me to show up and either automate, delegate, outsource, systemize, where I can show up for 2 hours a day and really get more done than most people get done in a 10-hour day.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it sounds to me as you do not allow your heart condition to limit or block you in things. It's almost more of an opening
Yeah.
to not take
Yeah.
things for granted and just, yeah. I
I think that's a really good way to look at it is my relationship with my heart condition is not that, we kind of go back to the way that we started this, is not that my heart condition limits me, but it really allows me to have a different perspective on life and to look at things differently. And it gives me permission to really just appreciate each and every day that I'm given, each and every moment that I'm given. And on the days when I'm really tired and I'm exhausted and I know that my heart is in need of recovery, I take that as a sign and a gift that I'm noticing that versus being in a position where I feel like I have to ignore and override that.
right. And I like that you say giving yourself permission, because that's really what it is. It's giving yourself permission to listen to your body, follow your heart, do what feels natural. You don't have to work yourself to the
Yeah.
point of exhaustion. It's just giving yourself permission in all of those areas.
Yeah, most definitely. And modeling that for my kids who don't currently have a heart condition. Neither of them are 14, so I don't know, what the future holds, but being able to model that without a heart condition for my children, that you're allowed to take breaks, you're allowed to design your work life, you're allowed to, like, I give my daughters mental health days from school where they don't have to be sick, or they don't have to have a reason to miss school. If they just feel like it's in alignment with their mental health and it's what's best for them, they're allowed to have those mental health days. Do I limit them? Yes. It's just because I've seen in my companies when I do unlimited PTO how it doesn't get used because people don't think to use it. And so I give them a limited resource to use, and I like how they use it with respect and, consciousness and intention. I'm really proud that I'm able to have that gift to give to my kids.
Mhm. And it helps them, it creates that awareness in them, because so many people, even as an adults, do not have that awareness of what do I need right now? Oh, maybe it is a mental health day I need, because then tomorrow I'm going to be me again. I'm going
Yeah.
to be productive. How often we push ourselves beyond our limits to the point we really aren't productive. We're
Yeah.
not we're not really giving to ourselves. We're not giving to our work, to our family, because it's like you're pushing to the grind all the time and you don't have that self-awareness of mental
Yeah.
health. What do I need? Am I in check with me? What's working? What's not?
Yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And removing the pressure of, because I used to be a therapist. Between being an entrepreneur, well, while being an entrepreneur, I still got my master's degree and became a therapist. And I remember clients, patients at the time sitting down and saying, I just want to feel like me again. And without this, or the feedback that their family says that they're just not themselves lately. And without this perception of what others think that I should be, how I should be, or without this pressure of how I think that I should be showing up in the world, if we just acknowledge that we're having a day where our bodies or our minds or our emotions need, desire a reset without the pressure, how much more health can we recover without that? I have to come here and we have to fix something because my family says that I'm not myself anymore. Well, this season of your life looks like this additional depression and additional anxiety. This is your body delivering you messages. So rather than trying to avoid it, let's sit with it and receive the messages so that they don't come back louder next time.
And I think that is what happens to so many people, that say, I don't know who I am anymore. Well, we lost ourselves because we ignored all of those signals and signs that your body is giving you, and you're not paying attention to them. It's just, nope, I'm going to keep doing it this way. And pretty soon, yeah, you have lost yourself. It's
Yeah.
so easy to do. And I don't even want to say, oh, that's midlife. I see it a lot. I'm maybe a little bit more midlife right now. I'm not really, I have a lot of years left, but I feel this is happening at a younger age, because we follow these paths that really aren't even in line with
Yeah.
who we truly are. And then, here you are in your young 20s, and I don't know who I am because I never discovered it in the first place. Whereas I feel like I did discover it way back when, but yeah, we kind of give it away to everyone else, and all of a sudden it catches up with you. Who am I?
Yeah. Yeah. And when this is like the deep question for me and to share with the listeners that, I'd invite you to get a pen and paper, is like, when did you stop asking that question?
Oh, I love
Because
the that question.
well,
It's
I
so
have a
true.
6-year-old, and I have almost 12-year-old. And so
Mhm.
my 6-year-old has a whole lot of awareness on who she is. And she'll be the first one to tell you that's not what she wants to do. That's not what she thinks. That's not what she believes. That's not what she wants to wear. And I'm here for all of it. I know that it can be annoying in some cases as a parent when you pick out the clothes and they're like, but she picks out her clothes the night before. I don't care if they match. It drives my best friend nuts because she never wears matching socks. That's a difficult thing to say like 3 times fast. However, like other than society telling us we like socks come in these 2 matching things, you should wear them together. I mean, she gets to experience like Elsa on one foot, and I think she has like a Woody Woodpecker sock on the other foot, and she's just here for it. And it's so fun to be able to, experience this with her. I got a moose sock from Canada. I got 2 of them for everybody who's curious. I got 2 of them for her, but she wore one of those with a sock that we got from Ireland when we went last summer. And she was telling me stories about like, what if we put the moose in Ireland? And what if like the moose was, and it just was the coolest thing to be able to be like, oh, well, when we just go with who we are and we don't question on, what is the world going to think? It's so incredible. And then I see my 11-year-old who started middle school, and she comes home from Valentine's Day and she's like, do you think that they liked my Valentines? Do you think that, like they were okay? Because I didn't have a variety. I just got one flavor and I didn't write everybody's names on it because I didn't know everybody's names because it was different classes. And I'm seeing her live in her head, wondering whether or not she had a good day based on whether or not the people around her were accepting of her. And I just see like in the 5-year age difference, what happened where we started sourcing externally versus just internally waking up and knowing like I'm awake and therefore I have this purpose to go out and spread in the world, versus waking up and being like, okay, what can I do today to prove that I'm enough to live another day?
Yeah. I love the little example of the Valentines because I think this is such a good example. I know it's changed my parenting for one, but it's changed who I show up as, for myself too, because the question is, back to your daughter, it's did you love the gift that you gave for Valentine's Day? Did you feel good about giving it? It doesn't matter whether they liked it or not, whether they thought it was cool or not. Did you find fulfillment and joy? And did you feel like a loving, generous person giving it? And I think when we get away from that, I've been doing a lot of talks lately too about the codependency. And it's just like what you referenced to. You get up in your head. Well, did I make everybody else happy today? Did I, that's not what it's about, because you're never going to.
Yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing with my 6-year-old, just to give everybody a laugh, is that she showed me 3 different treat bags. And she's like, this one came from Liam, and this one came from Anthony, and this one came from Kayla. She's like, it's funny that they gave me these because they're not even my friends. They're not nice to me on the other days. And I inquired, I said, well, what makes them not your friends? And so we had that conversation. She's like, that's why I didn't give them a lollipop. And I said, well, when they gave you candy, did you give them back? No, because they're not nice to me, so they didn't deserve it. I was just like, okay.
Well, and here's the thing though. I love that, because how many of us as young girls are taught to be kind no matter what? And I'm not saying you can't be kind and respectful to people. She didn't go up and, spit in their face, but she honored what she really felt. And I like that. She kept her power, because how often do we hand our power over to other people based on what they think? Oh, well, people will think I'm mean and rude if I just don't give everybody a piece. Well, if you don't feel like doing that for a certain reason, that's not being mean or rude. It's standing in your own truth. I mean, it would have been different if she would have written them a letter that said, hey, look, you're not getting one because, but look at us as adults, and especially adult women, how often we don't stand true in our own truth. And we hand our power away and we just back down. It even reminds me of how so many women feel, I have to be friends with everyone. No, you need to be friendly with everyone, but everyone does not need to be your friend.
Yeah. And she that's such a true statement, and to see it in this tiny 6-year-old's body,
Yeah.
because she told them, like, she gave them positive constructive feedback. She said,
Right.
"I'll bring the lollipops for the rest of the week, and if you can be nice to me for the rest of the week, I'll be happy to give you one because my friends are nice to me and they get lollipops. So if you want to be
Mhm.
my friend." So it wasn't like, you don't get a lollipop because you're mean to me. And this is something that I've worked really hard on as a parent, of rather than taking things away, rather than focusing on what you're going to lose out on, I focus on what you're going to gain. And so
Yeah.
to hear her invite them to be like, if you would like to be my friend, I would love to be your friend. And here's the opportunity and here's the invitation. And you get to decide how you're going to show up. I'm not bribing you. I'm not punishing you. I'm just giving you this opportunity and this invitation. And if you want to take it, great. And if you don't, I'm good with that as well. And that works, like, instead of being like, hey, if you guys don't clean your room, you're not going to get X, Y, and Z. I'll ask them, what do you think a positive consequence would be if you guys had your rooms cleaned? And it's oftentimes free for me, because they're like, well, we can find stuff easier. And I would think they'll just feel better getting into a clean bed. And I'm like, win-win. I didn't have to bribe you, and I don't have to like give you something in order to do it. So they're really independently finding what positive and negative consequences are. But I found that really focusing on what you gain from doing something instead of what you lose has been a huge psychology hack for success.
And that's so tapping into your inner wisdom and intuition. It truly is. I think the thing is how often as we age, we detour from that. We let it go.
Yeah.
And truly, what made me, yeah, no, I agree on that. Definitely. And there's so much more to gain than there is to lose.
Yeah.
We focus a lot of times on the loss and things.
Yeah.
Definitely. I
Yeah.
do want to ask, 10 miscarriages. That's a
Yeah.
lot. That
It
is
is
a
a lot.
lot physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. That could take a toll. Are you open to sharing? How does
Yeah.
one bounce back? How do you go through that?
Well, I don't think there is a bouncing back. I think there is a cognitive choice to move through. And this has a lot to do with faith, and it has a lot to do with what I've said of things are happening for you. And so, for example, we had 4 before my first daughter, 2 in between my daughters, and we've had 4 over the past 6 years. And so one of the miscarriages, I found out that I ended up having cancer. And so it was through the process of the miscarriage that we ended up discovering this. And I think about what that process would have been like if we hadn't discovered that, and what my health would have been like. And I changed my lifestyle a lot through that process. And we didn't try for about a year and a half because of all the things that were going on health wise. And when I conceived our second daughter, I was probably in one of the highest physical, mental, and emotional health states of my entire life. And so having, like, our last miscarriage was about a month ago, and it really allowed me to take a step back and kind of, I had this visual of like a closed fist of like, I need another child, versus like, how do you hold things with a closed fist and kind of suffocate them, versus like this open palm of desire to be like, I'm open for it. I desire it. I don't need it. I'm a good mom, an incredible mom, an incredible wife, whether or not we have another child. And what else can I be open for? And people have been like, well, what about using a surrogate? Because obviously I have my heart conditions. And that's not in alignment right now for my husband and I, because we don't feel like we need another child. It's something that we're open for. And because we have 2 healthy children, we know it's possible. So for me, it's like feedback. And I also switched. So it's feedback for me to be like, how can you get even healthier? If this is the invitation and the opportunity to get even healthier. And the other perspective switch that I really had that has meant a lot to me, and it may not land for a lot of women, is I never lost a baby, I lost a pregnancy.
Mm.
So even when I have been, in my second trimester, and we've had a loss, which was devastating. I stick with that perspective because if I was meant to have that pregnancy and meant to have that child, then I would have had the child. And that goes to my faith. And so I don't know what would have happened to me during the birth. I don't know what could have possibly happened to the child. And it's not to say that I'm not devastated and I don't cry. And my cousin is her due date was 4 days after one of our miscarriages due dates, and I went to her baby shower and met my nephew and celebrated him, and then I got the invitation for his 1-year birthday party, and that's when it hit me that I looked at my husband and was like, we would have a 1-year-old, and we had to have a DNC, so we know it was a boy. I said we would have a 1-year-old son, and I let the grief be with me. And then I also thought about in the past year, I mean, I flew to Europe for the summer with my girls and brought my dad to 2 Eagles concerts in Europe. I visited my husband who was on deployment. And then I went back to Greece to visit him again. And we hosted a retreat in Hawaii for 3 weeks. And so it's like in the last year, would have been a whirlwind. I would not have been able to do those things if I had a newborn. And I also would have been giving birth to the newborn while my husband was on deployment. And yeah, we desired that, we planned for that, but was it optimal? And so I have the benefit of hindsight to be able to look at it from that perspective. And I do think one of the things that I'd like to share for anybody that is struggling with fertility is this aspect that I am now a geriatric pregnancy. And I'm a high risk pregnancy. And so don't listen to these labels. Like, don't listen to the medical labels that are on you. My first daughter, I was told that I was going to miscarry with her. And she's now 11 and in middle school, and she's great. And I used a midwife to be able to bring her into the world. And what I experienced with that is just, and I'm not saying you should use a midwife. I'm not saying to go against any of your doctor's orders. But it's like, what positive consequences are there when you don't accept somebody else's label for you? Because I don't see any positive consequence of accepting that I am a geriatric pregnancy or that I'm a high risk pregnancy. I don't think the second that I conceive, having my doctors just jump into the worst case scenarios and talking to me with those labels, I don't see that as beneficial. I see it as, how can I create the least stressful environment for me and the most positive environment for me? And at the end of the day, if we don't end up with another healthy baby and I just end up with a healthy life, that makes me even better for my daughters. And if I rewinded it all and we found out that we couldn't have kids, through me giving birth, we probably would have adopted. And that's something that I wanted to do since, I spent a summer in Ecuador. And it's like, I'm positive this is all happening for me. And it's not, no 2 fertility pregnancy stories are the same. And so for all of my 10 miscarriages, there's women who have had more, there's women who have had less, and there's women who have a totally different experience and perspective than I do. But that's the biggest thing that really helped me, is knowing that if I was meant to have the baby, I would have had the baby. And so I could not have possibly lost the baby I was supposed to have. I only lost the pregnancy for that time.
I love that, because those are such wise words, and that's what builds the resilience to keep showing up for yourself and moving forward. And like you said, yeah, it's not a bouncing back.
Yeah.
And number one, I was labeled the geriatric pregnancy. I had my youngest daughter at 38, and it's comical now. I have to just see the humor in it, whatever. I really, but it's a pregnancy that you lost. That reframe of your mindset is so consistent and persistent throughout your life. And there is no doubt it is why you are where you are. right now. And I think it's such a great, just a wonderful thing to point out. And I hope all the listeners can really apply that to some area in their life, because we all have our stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not about comparing, like you said, even the fertility stories. It's unique to everyone. It's not about comparing ourselves to other people, whether we have it worse or not as bad, so we can't feel this way. It's a reset and that reframe of your mindset, seeing the perspective that will keep us moving forward, moving those blocks and those limits out, because there is abundance. There's so much to be had in this life.
Yes. There really is. And, go back to that visual of the closed fist versus the open palm.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was so upset when my doctor had said this, but my doctor had said, because we miscarried right before Christmas with one of our miscarriages. And the doctor said, go home and enjoy your 2 healthy babies. And I was so angry at that time. I'm like, how could he say that to me? And then I sat there and was like, you are allowed to be sad. You don't have to hide it from your children. And you're also allowed to be grateful for what you have. Like, both of those are true. Yes. And that's kind of like the theme of my life is, yes, you have a heart condition and you can still be a stunt woman. Yes, you have these miscarriages and you're allowed to be thrilled with the babies that you have. And you don't have to stop trying, And so I just want to make sure that no matter what your reframe is, that you're also honoring your feelings and your emotions that go on with it, because you're allowed to move forward in life and you're allowed to be successful, and you're still allowed to have days and times when you're sad. And when you say the words 10 miscarriages out loud and are like, wow, that's a lot. And I get that, when miscarriages, I'm like, yeah, I'm through it.
And I think that is, sit with the feeling, like have the feels, feel the feels, the good and the bad. And I think sometimes we almost want to punish ourselves, and we feel like we need to stay in those bad feelings.
Yeah.
And no, we also need to give ourselves permission to feel joy in the midst of the pain and the suffering.
Yeah.
And but also allow ourselves time to feel the pain and the suffering. But we don't have to sit and stay in a certain spot, but we do need to go through it. And you definitely, I love how you have painted that picture of you go in there and you walk through all of that. Yeah. Feel those feels, be aware of that. And then it's a choice. Where do I go from here? Where do I want to go from here? Who am I? Who are you at the core? I think has a lot to do with how you're going to handle all of life's stuff that does come at you too.
You're allowed to be sad without having to live your life as a sad person. Like, you don't have to accept those labels. You're allowed to be 35, 38, 40 and have successful pregnancies. You don't have to, be labeled or accept the label of a high risk or geriatric pregnancy. You are you. And like, what does Dr. Seuss say? Like, there's no one more you than you. I'm sure that Dr. Seuss says it a ton better. And that's like one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Seuss is actually from Lorax. And it's like, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's ever going to get better. It's not. And I think that if the Lorax and Dr. Seuss would allow me to add one thing to that quote, it's unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot about you. Because that's where it truly starts. Having compassion, having empathy, bringing kindness into this world. The truest, cleanest form of energy to bring into this world comes from you giving it to yourself.
Most definitely. And it's the difference between the I am and I feel, because think of how often we say, I am angry, I am whatever. No, these are feelings you feel, and then you need to do something about them. They're just, it's a feeling, a really good feeling, because it means pay attention to me.
Yeah.
Something is making you angry and you need to do something about it. So you don't become angry. It's not, you don't become that identity. But how many people are so quick to identify themselves with all of the negative feelings instead of going around and saying, maybe I am happy. I mean, happy is still a feeling, but I think that's kind of a core value too, because it is such a choice. It is.
Yeah.
Truly, I just love that difference. That's going to be a separate pod, actually. The I am versus
no,
feel. You better be careful how you
I'll
identify.
bring you, Jamie, I'll give you something for that particular podcast, and you can edit this all out if it's too much for your listeners.
It's
But
not.
when
It's
I was
authentic and it's real and raw. Go.
So when I was working as a therapist, I, showed people that in psychology, it takes 90 seconds to move through a feeling, like 90 seconds. And so when you're like, I'm having a bad week or I'm having a sad day, it's like, it doesn't have to be for 24 hours. It doesn't have to be for a week. And people are like, well, you don't understand, like the feeling's just sticking. And it's because you're resistant to really, really feeling it. And if you need proof of that, an orgasm is a feeling of pleasure. And it lasts about 90 seconds if you're lucky. And no one walks around having an orgasm week or an orgasm day. And so that is the definition. Like, it's a feeling. And so, yes, all of your feelings, if you really, really are committed to feeling them, last as long as an orgasm.
I love the analogy.
There you go.
Because that sticks with you. It's a great reminder.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
So, I mean, that's all a feeling is. So you can move through it.
Yeah. So you're quite the entrepreneur. And when I think of entrepreneurship, I think of just imagination, but I think of drive. I think of, pushing through failures and rejection and just and keep trying, keep reinventing yourself. So those are the things that really come to mind when you think career-wise. Like, what's your mindset there? Because so many people get stuck in so many areas of life. Give us a mindset. Give us a little take on your mindset.
I think I can share from my experience that if there was a job that would have paid me something that allowed me to live the kind of lifestyle that I wanted and work the hours that were conducive for me, and that I could bring all of my tools to that job, I would have taken it. And that's really how I didn't find fulfillment being a therapist. The kind of deep, rich fulfillment. And I worked in child protective services and in private practice because I tried to find the lifestyle and the income. And then I also tried to just do it for the fulfillment. And I needed both. I needed that yes and. And so that's where I ended up as an entrepreneur. I have the benefit of knowing business inside and out from my parents. And so I think a lot of people start their own company and create a job for themselves. I was just talking to somebody that's in one of the masterminds with me, and she's like, well, I have a $75,000 income goal. And I said, well, that's creating a job for yourself, which is okay. But $75,000 is a salary. It's not a company. And a lot of freelancers or coaches or entrepreneurs do that, and they create jobs for themselves because they want to work for themselves, which is perfectly fine. So there's wanting to work for yourself. There's wanting to do what you're good at and have somebody else pay you, which, is a job. And then there's, careers where you're planning on doing that for decades or longer. And a career, you typically have certain kind of training that you're doing along with it. And then there's a company where you have every intention of scaling and building, under you with the intention of selling it or creating monthly recurring revenue and passive revenue. And that's when you look at kind of the 4 quadrants of income and wealth is like another one of my super big passions. We could do a whole nother podcast on that. But you're moving from kind of working as an employee to being self-employed to being a business owner to where I'm at, where you're investing. And it's like now I'm at a point where I have the income from being a business owner. I'm not in a position where I really want to be starting multiple other companies, but I can invest in other people's companies at the stage that they're at and then get my dividends from that investment. And I think when you look at it, a lot of people just aren't aware of those quadrants. And employment is the highest taxed of those quadrants. And so in a 40-hour work week, you're working pretty much a day and a half for free. And that wasn't in alignment with my lifestyle goals. I didn't want to work, 40 hours and only get paid for 30 something. I wanted to work the 40 hours and get paid for as many as I could. And then I got to a point where I didn't want to have to work the 40 hours. I wanted to work the 1 hour and then make X amount of money. And so that took into the scaling. And so it's really, you have to be honest with the lifestyle that you desire, and you have to be honest with what you're willing to build. But I see a lot of individuals own this role of CEO, and CEO really is a business owner. And it's not to say that you can't use that title, but I want to make sure that, when you're stepping into owning your own business, there's a difference between owning a business and creating a job for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And I think so often, like, you're crystal clear on what you want.
Yeah.
You're in line with your values. I feel so many people do not take that time it's not like we have to map and plan out every little detail of our lives, but so many people do not even have a fuzzy picture or barely have a fuzzy picture. And I just feel like you have asked yourself these questions. You have identified who you are, what do you want it to feel like? And how much do I want to work? Does it fulfill me? All of these things that so many people, it's not even on the radar.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
I know we're running out of time, but I want to be clear on that in the aspect that I've spent over 7 figures working with professionals to identify what that means for me, and also in a professional capacity, what that means for my companies. And so, yes, I am extremely clear, but that's not something I locked myself in the room for a weekend and figured out. It was like years of working with professionals to support me on that journey and that accountability in a personal and professional capacity. So coaches, mentors, masterminds, even my degrees, I would say somewhat help with that.
And I think all of that has filtered down into every area of your life, personally, professionally, relationally, spiritually, everywhere. So what are some last impactful and empowering words for the listeners, Bunny?
I think that you are the highest return. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are the highest return on investment. And so, if any of these questions that you're starting to ask from this podcast, like, find somebody to be able to community and clarity and consistency are what have really equaled the most amount of success in my marriage, in my life, in my love of myself and what I do, and those in my family and just in my life. And so, if you really want to upgrade your life, upgrade your community, upgrade your environment, get really, really clear, and then be consistent. 1% increments over daily time frame.
That. It's investing in yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Most definitely. Well, thank you so much for this conversation, Bunny.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And any last, where we can find you?
Yeah, if you guys follow me on Instagram at Bunny Has 6 Legs, and it's the number 6 because I've got a service animal, or you can go to bunnyyoung.com, and I do make tons of resources on there free, from our upcoming podcast to our YouTube channel. So love to connect, love to see you there, and thank you guys so much for listening.
Yes, definitely. And I'll put all your info in the show notes as well. So thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you so much for being here as we kick off this podcast together. I really appreciate you joining me on this journey, because I'm well aware you could be doing or listening to anything right now. Hey, if you enjoy the Authentically Raw content, please support the show by following, rating, and reviewing on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. You can also follow me on social media for daily inspiration. Head over to my website, jamiebarris.com, to sign up for weekly transformation tips, Or if you're interested in coaching, I currently have 3 openings for one-on-one coaching. If you're looking for an empowering community, we'd love for you to join us in the Transformation Tribe, our group coaching membership. More info available on my website under the Life Coaching and Membership tabs. One last thing, I'm rooting for you. Be real, be raw, be authentic.